Coming up on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we look at the Ole Miss Pro Day, Coach O going to Georgia, and Cara McCutcheon drops by to give us her perspective on all things Ole Miss Sports. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for tuning in. I do want to tell you today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, I'm very happy to talk about, it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about, the Pro Day that's at Ole Miss today. Matt Corral actually throwing the football for professional scouts. But before we get started, I do want to tell you to thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please upvote the video itself, and of course hit the bell for notifications of new videos. It's going to be a lot of fun, and a lot of stuff is on the table. So we're proud for that. So Matt Corral throwing his pro day, and he had a pretty good pro day. I mean, he looked healed from his Sugar Bowl injury, which everybody said he would be. There's no reason to opt out of a bowl game. There he is. He's healed and throwing the ball on the run and doing all the things that they have questions about at pro day. Now, were there some things that could have gone a little better? Probably. It doesn't really matter, and that's the thing that everybody needs to understand, is it doesn't really matter. Although I will say this, I did enjoy Pro Day. To be able to video Pro Day back then and sell it to NFL teams for $300 a video, yes, I was a fan of that, and I was at Ole Miss when P. Willie was coming through the system at Ole Miss when people were caring about it. So there was some money made on Pro Day at Ole Miss. So that was a lot of fun. But Matt Corral came out and did what he was supposed to do. Came out and showed that he had zip on his passes, could throw the deep ball, could make the reads that they wanted him to make, and all around looked okay at his Pro Day. There's no ill effects. Now, this probably should cause him to go from 3 on Pro Day up to number 1. All these people ranking quarterbacks, specifically the top 4, you see it in different people with different things, but it's Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, and Sam Howell. Those are the 4 quarterbacks that get ranked. But to see Matt Corral go up, everybody should expect that. If he doesn't, it doesn't really matter. All 4 of those quarterbacks are probably going to go in the first round. Doesn't matter where they're slotted in. When it comes to a quarterback, if you are the 50th player overall, you're going to be drafted in the top 32 because people need quarterbacks. Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Carolina Panthers were also there, had their full staff coming in to look at that. They also went to the Malik Willis throw as well. So it should be a lot of interesting. It is pretty cool whenever they put these made-for-TV pro days out there. I am someone that generally just does not like pro days in the combine because they opt out and make meaningless actually another college football bowl game. Because myself and I truly enjoy the college game more than the pro game. A bowl game and that Sugar Bowl that Matt Corral played in, that was an opportunity to say goodbye to him from the Ole Miss fan base. Because there's probably 75% of the fan base that don't care what goes on the NFL. And once he moves on, he moves on. He's simply somebody that used to play for Ole Miss. So I'm glad he played in that bowl game. Can you imagine if he Kenny Pickett it and backed out and opted out, and you weren't able to do that? The last time we saw Matt Corral was the Mississippi State game, and it just abruptly ended. It's one of the reasons I say all the time in this NIL and transfer portal market and everything that's going on, the relationship between the fans and the players are going to change. They just are. These made-for-TV moments, and them taking the selfish path instead of the school path, is going to make the fans look at players differently. Matt Corral is a dying breed. He is a 13 out of 10 in leadership. That is what he is going to be remembered by at Ole Miss, his leadership. Chad Kelly had better numbers. Eli Manning went first overall. But as far as leadership goes, Matt Corral stands alone in leadership. And people need to take that into account. The problem with that is it kind of pigeonholes him with the NFL draft this year. He might go at 2021. Doesn't necessarily mean he's a worse player than Eli. Although I do think Matt Corral is pretty solidly third or fourth on the Mount Rushmore of Ole Miss quarterbacks at this point. I think it's fourth, honestly, because of different criteria for each thing. And leadership is the reason he gets on there at all. It's the reason he was able to pass Bo Wallace. But it'll be interesting to see where he ends up in the draft. It'd be interesting to see where all the Ole Miss players ended up in the draft. There's a lot of players that went pro that essentially went pro to avoid being processed. And it wasn't because of anything they did or they weren't good players. It was just they wanted the numbers to be able to sign the 32 initials, and they had to address that roster crunch. There's only so many players you can process. There's only so many players that can go pro, and all of that to make players be able to come in. And right now in the initials count, I don't know where the JUCOs like Reginald Hughes, if he might count backwards, so it could be 3 players. But there's probably about 2 players left. And the rumor is that Deion Smith is one of those. And also a defensive back is on campus that could transfer portal in. So that would be 2. Now, if Reginald Hughes counts back to where you can put those on last year's numbers, that changes things a little bit when it comes to the count. But I have not heard. I do not know where exactly that is and how that count goes. But as it happens, we will commentate on what's going on. Those 32 initials are the most important thing. Everybody talks about the 85. The 85s can be played with. The 32 is the important thing. Remember that. The 32 initial scholarships, walk-ons don't count. I don't care if they're coming here and walking on. You can sign as many as you want to as the 85 will allow if they're a walk-on. But if it's an initial scholarship, that changes things a little bit. But Matt Corral had a pretty good day. Really. It would not surprise me to see him go up the list of the top 4 players at the quarterback position. I did a Locked On Now that we do a couple for the NFL players or whatever's coming on about Matt Corral and described him as the greatest leader to ever come through Ole Miss. People want to talk and people want to get excited about what he did on the field. But what he did off the field is what he's going to be known for. And those are the things that are going to separate him. He reminds me very much of Joe Burrow off the field. I will say that again. He reminds me very much of Joe Burrow. So we'll see what goes on. So your bracket's busted, you and everyone else. Don't worry, we believe in second chances, and so do our friends at Run Your Pool. Round up your friends who picked Baylor or Kentucky or any other high seed to win it all, and start a Sweet 16 pool at runyourpool.com/lockedon. Along with Sweet 16 brackets, Run Your Pool offers squares pools, yes, like the Super Bowl, to keep things interesting every week of the tournament. Brackets bust, but the fun doesn't have to stop. They have options to edit scoring. They offer more intel to make your picks. All the stuff you won't find at the big media bracket sites. If you're looking to expand your horizons, Run Your Pool has games for just about every sport, including NBA, PGA, MLB, and even the Oscars. Once the madness ends, try something new. Plus, they offer full white glove customer support, custom branding, and one of the easiest 3-minute setups you will ever find. Clearly, we believe in Run Your Pool because we run our Survivor and Bracket contest there this year ourselves. Start your second chance, Sweet 16 pool, and more at runyourpool.com/lockedon. That's runyourpool.com/lockedon. Anyone else take Kentucky and now your brackets are busted? Yeah, mine's not looking good, but I still have some cash from my Stat Hero Pick'em. If you haven't checked this out, this new platform, you're really missing out. Stat Heroes NCAA single game pick'ems pick the star players against each other in an amazing hybrid between fantasy and sports gambling. Take control back from those handicappers that always seem to have the advantage. Start focusing on players that you know best with gameplay that doesn't rely on big spreads, long odds, or funky props. Stat Hero gives you the advantage, resulting in their gamers winning 4 times more often. Why? Because Stat Hero eliminates the mystery about who or what you are going up against. So here's what you do. Sign up for free right now at stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% deposit match. That's stathero.com/lockedon. Use promo code LOCKEDON for a 100% match. stathero.com/lockedon. Promo code LOCKEDON. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including please leave a review and rate us on iTunes. You can say whatever you want to say. Just make sure it's a 5-star review. But if you do that, we'd appreciate it. It should be a lot of fun. You can say whatever you want to say. You can say Steve's an imbecile, but 5 stars. All right. Coach Yo, through a Twitter post today, has rebuffed Georgia. Now, we had people all during the day talking and quoting sources that Coach Yo was leaving. Now, is this an example of that you can't listen to media and they're wrong more than they're right? I don't know. I think it was just a fluid situation, and Georgia probably had some things going for them. But at the end of the day, Keith Carter did his job to make a competitive offer. Now, make no mistake, if Coach Yo would have left, Ole Miss would have been in miles better shape than when she got here. And it would be up to Ole Miss to take the hire to try and continue it instead of find somebody to try and fix it. And that is a credit to Coach Yo. But Coach Yo's saying and the ability to finish what she started or continue doing what she started is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's good because, like I said, when I grew up, Van Chancellor's leading the Gillums and everybody. There was basketball games where they were battling the Lady Vols and the Lady Texters, and they did this all the time. And I think at one point they had gone to every single NCAA tournament for 15 years or something like that. Then it kind of stopped. Van Chancellor retired. Carol Ross came in. Ole Miss went to the Elite Eight behind Armini Price. But that was 15 years ago. Then there was a 15-year gap in Ole Miss getting back. Now, I can't really remember the name of the coach that got Ole Miss into a ton of trouble, that had the NCAA on campus, that bled over into football. But it was Adrian something. I'm just not sure. His firing crippled Ole Miss's basketball program. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The basketball program was crippled. Matt Insel was hired to fix it. He could not dig out of that hole. His dad, by the way, is the basketball coach at MTSU. And before that, he was at Shelbyville High School, the same high school my wife went to, the more you know. She actually, I think, tried out for his basketball team whenever he coached there. So pretty interesting. But he was not able to turn it around, and they were able to hire Coach Yo, who came in and as soon as, 3 years ago, winless in SEC play. And not just winless. There's some games where Ole Miss looked hapless, where they just didn't have the bodies. They didn't have the pieces. And then we have a number 1 recruiting class. We have everything to the point where this year, Ole Miss was the number 7 seed and wore white at the NCAA tournament. And we saw by South Dakota, it's kind of a bad draw. Them coming in as a 10, they didn't have the reputation, apparently, but they had been to like 4 straight NCAA tournaments, but they beat Ole Miss and they beat Baylor. So it was a good team that Coach O lost to, but it is what it is. So I'm a little bit excited about how I can see Ole Miss's women's basketball team in the future. I do think Ole Miss's women's basketball team, Coach O, listen to this. If you don't listen to anything else, listen to this. Take Ole Miss's men's throwbacks and make that your primary jersey. that old English lettering of the Ole Miss, the old school, with the lines on the side. Both the men's and the women's team should make that their primaries. It's the best looking uniform that Ole Miss has had, and it looks really good, both white and blue. It's just something that should be brought back, and Ole Miss should just make it its primary. They need that old English lettering, and it just looks great. Now, the questions I have moving forward with Coach Yo is, how do you replace Shakira Austin? That is going to be the big question. And that was probably in the back of her mind a selling point about moving on to Georgia, because there's going to be a little bit of a rebuild. But we still have the nucleus of that number one recruiting class. So I think Ole Miss should hit the transfer portal hard. Find defenders, find height, because that's one thing that was on their side. Find some outside shooters, I believe. I think they relied too much on the outside shot, and they weren't very good outside shooters because they have such a good inside game. But that is the way I would handle that. Anyway, congratulations, Coach Yo, on staying at Ole Miss. Makes me very happy and should be a lot of fun. I think we're going to talk about it with Cara McCutcheon here in the next segment. Anyway, let's hear from Built Bar. This is the time of year when I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. This year, I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on some of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious. They're all new flavors, and they're coming out all the time. If they think a flavor might be good, they'll make it. It'll be delicious, and it will be good for you. Just real quick. There we go. Microsoft Word messed up on me for a second. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, and then they figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. At Built Bar, they're all... So here's the offer. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. It is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Of course, upvote the video itself and hit the bell for notifications of new videos. I'm here with Cara McCutcheon, who is going to give all of her perspective about Ole Miss Sports. Cara, how are you doing?
Doing good. Happy to be back.
Pretty good. It just came over the wire that Coach Yo is in fact staying. After all the reports, the scheduled all through the day said that she was leaving. At the end of the day, she actually stayed, which means that Keith Carter actually did his job. But I'm pretty excited about it.
Oh, I'm ecstatic. I saw it right before I joined on, and that she said she wanted to stay and continue what they've been doing. And I think everyone else is really wanting that as well. We love us some Coach Yo, so I'm so happy she decided to stay.
Yeah, it's pretty good because her transformation of this basketball program from just where it was 3 years ago to what it is now is nothing short of remarkable. And it was worth it to keep her. But like I have said, there's no coach, no player that is above the program, and anybody can be replaced. But that being said, Coach Yo staying is a good thing for Ole Miss.
Yes, I agree. I'm super excited for her.
Yes. Let's talk a little bit of Pro Day. Did you watch any of the Pro Day stuff today?
I did see a little bit of Matt Corral throwing a few deep. I got to see a few highlights during the Feinbaum show, and they were showing different highlights. So got to tune in just a little bit. Matt, I think I saw, ended up having the best grade out of all the quarterbacks in his class. So super excited for him. Saw some updates where he was talking to Mike Tomlin. So good signs there.
Yeah, as long as they're not talking to Matt Rule, although Matt Rule being there is kind of scares me a little bit with Carolina needing a quarterback. And Pittsburgh, maybe. But, they already had their meeting in Seattle and all that with Pete Carroll. So who knows how it goes. The main story is that Matt looked pretty good. People are going to say very good and everybody's going to talk about it. But, it's a made-for-TV event, these pro days. And he looked pretty good. Basically, he looked mobile and he looked unhampered by his injury.
Yeah, I think a good thing, though, is because he was unable to perform at the combine, it was good for him to kind of show out at the pro day and to show he's healthy, he's able to move. So I thought that was a good showing for him.
Yeah, and did all he could do. There were some drop passes by receivers, but there's no coverage and everything. It's basically just seeing what it looks like him throwing the football and how the ball comes out of his arm. That's what you're looking at, these pro day type things. One interesting thing is Sam Williams with a vertical leap of 36 inches. That's a big man and jumping a long way.
Yes. I continually am impressed with Sam Williams. He just continues to get better and better. This kid's going to be a star. We're going to see this name for quite some time, I think, with him.
Yeah, the system that we ran last year, and especially rushing the passer, was just tailor-made for what he does really well. And somebody is going to pick him up in the later, probably 3rd, 4th, 5th round, somewhere around there. And he's going to be a 4-3 defensive end. He's going to do really well. So, everything's going on. Spring practice has started. And, the first day, the name that came out of the first day was Davis Nigmanuson. And what are some stuff that you're looking for as day 2 comes on?
So, a few things I'm looking at that I'm kind of wanting to see highlights on is, obviously is everybody, the quarterback play. So I watched a few highlights of the different quarterback, and I read a couple too soon depth charts. And of course, we're all looking probably towards Jackson Dart, not saying he will be the guy, but it's highly anticipated he will. The other thing I'm looking at is kind of the wide receiver depth chart and how that's going to go. Obviously, Mingo, looking at some of these new guys, Jackson State, but definitely looking into the wide receiver a little bit more. I read a lot about Chris Partridge and how the defense is going.
Chris Partridge, you're getting confused by Stuart Partridge. Gets me every time whenever I talk about Chris Partridge. I blame Stuart Partridge.
So yeah, Chris Partridge. A lot of the stuff I've read is it's not a lot different from what they had last year, so he's kind of keeping the same scheme, which is nice.
Yeah, my theory, if you've heard my theory of what's going on, Lane Kiffin basically has a offensive framework and a defensive framework, and his assistants can be as volatile as they want to, but whoever comes in is going to be able to do this framework, and that's the reason the co-OCs and the co-DCs are in position, because when the man in charge actually starts leaving, there's going to be people they can promote from within, and nothing's really going to change.
Right. I'm really excited. I read a lot. I call him Iggy because I butcher his name a lot. So I just stuck to Iggy. Saw a lot about his performance and a lot of good there. So extremely excited for him. Of course, though, when he chose us up a Rutgers, very super excited for this guy. So
yeah, and everybody needs to realize that when it comes to football, just wearing helmets and then from then to the first time you put on shoulder pads, that's a big difference. So whoever are standouts in the first couple of days, they are inevitably going to slip once the pads start going on. Although new NCAA rules kind of limits what they can do during spring practice. But there's still some interesting reps and battles that are yet to come over the next 14 practices.
I think a lot of excitement there. There's a lot to see after these practices. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, how they might use Trig, defense. There's just a ton to come out from spring practice. So,
looking at Michael Trigg, what do you think about him wearing the jersey number 0?
I kind of like it. I think it makes him stand out. It's like his own thing. I kind of like, he came in as a package deal with Jackson Dart, and Jackson Dart kind of has separated himself. So it kind of gives his own identity. I kind of like it.
Yeah. The probability percentage that I give Jackson Dart to win the quarterback job right now, is at 60%, and then 40% Luke Altmaier. And my reasoning for that is if Luke Altmaier is going to be the quarterback, he's going to have to absolutely beat out Jackson Dart. It's not, it can't be close. So Jackson Dart has the advantage, and the next 14 practices will be huge for him and for Luke Altmaier.
I'm super excited about all this. I hope no matter what happens, we kind of get to keep both. If it is Jackson Dart, I hope Luke kind of stays on. Of course, not always kind of works out that way, but
yeah. And people need to realize that if Luke Altmaier transfers after spring, that means that Jackson Dart is the clear runaway favorite winner of the job. It was indisputed. Because the coaches are not going to say it. The only thing that does that is the players saying, okay, this guy's absolutely better. I'm not going to play. I need to go somewhere else. So that's something to look at. So if Luke Altmaier jumps the gun after spring, that's probably because he got beat out in those 14 practices where it was clear amongst the players.
So what are you thinking about with us in the running back room? I've been looking at this with Jenkins and Evans, and man, we just have a lot of stud running backs, like potentially, and I think it'd be really hot. Lane's a run guy. This looks like a lot of talent right there.
Yeah, if you look at historically, Lane Kiffin has been a 60 to 70% run guy as a head coach his second time around. And except for 1 year, which was his last year at FAU, and I think the percentage then was like 55% run. So if they have studs, they run the football, and they use the run to play action pass, and they use the tight end and things like that. Well, they have Zach Evans, and they have Ulysses Bentley IV and Quinshon Judkins coming in. There's talent all over that running back room. And because of that, I genuinely am expecting a 60 to 70% run. And it's going to look like Daryl Singletary or whatever at FAU whenever he was running there that first year. I think it's going to look like that with having Zach Evans and Bentley in the backfield.
Yeah, this if you look at our offensive depth chart, we've really got a loaded offense. Of course, once we get into play, as you said, can be a little different. But man, we've got a lot of stars on this offense, and I'm really excited if we use Jackson Dart or Luke Altmaier in the same capacity that we used Matt Corral. A lot of threats, a lot of options. Like very, very excited for this offense.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. And let's change gears real quick because we have the opportunity of a top 5 matchup in baseball this weekend. Friday and Saturday are completely sold out already. Sunday has not, I do not believe, but it is probably going to trend that way. It's going to be a big baseball game, and like perfect game is number 1 Tennessee versus number 5 Ole Miss, and D1 baseball is number 1 Ole Miss versus number 5 Tennessee. It's absolutely yin and yang, symmetrical, however you want to look at it. But either way, it should be a really good series this weekend.
So, but let's talk about obviously the number one thing we all are wanting to see to start this series off. And that's for Lane Kiffin to throw out a bottle of mustard or a golf ball at the starting pitch. Like, I mean, I think even Tennessee fans should expect this, right?
Well, what he should do is he should absolutely throw out the first pitch, but it should be one of those yellow softballs a little bit, and to show that going in, and it would be absolutely hilarious if he could pull that off.
Yeah, I feel like Lane's the guy who would do it, and if Bianco and the rest will let him do it, like, come on, like, I think we're all wanting it. I think that's a Lane Kiffin special right there. So
this series has a chance to be a lot of fun. Like Tennessee and Arkansas, like the two coaches got into each other's face after the game. Like an altercation actually happened because Tennessee was having too much fun. And there was a home run hit in Tennessee last year where there was like a 20-foot bat flip. And this has a chance to be a fun series. And Tennessee has some flamethrowers out there pitching.
It's going to be a competitive series. It's going to be kind of tough with some of our pitching there. We're definitely going to have to tie up there, especially day 2. A little bit of more weakness there with that rotation. But I think if our bats can keep going and we get a little bit of that run support, maybe with Diamond there, if he is going to be in the starting rotation, it'll be a good series. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things with Derek Diamond that if Jack Washburn can find the strike zone a little bit, Derek Diamond's in a little bit of trouble right now as far as the weekend rotation goes, because John Gaddis looks like he is slowly submitting his resume to that Friday starting role. Jack Doherty moving up to Saturday, there's no mistake there. It comes that Sunday position to where I just think that if Jack Washburn can throw strikes, he'll end up being there.
And I do think for Diamond, like, he actually could be a great relieving pitcher if he does lose that starting role. He does a great job about two innings or so. He could move into the bullpen, be kind of in the relieving position if he were to lose the starting position. But I think a lot of also from what we saw from the last series could have had some run support, maybe help out a little bit there.
Yeah, I would put him personally. He would be the reliever, the first one in and out of the pen after John Gaddis, because they're stylistically so different. He'd probably be fairly effective. And Memphis just dropped a fly ball.
Yeah.
What is the deal about left fielders dropping fly balls? I'm seeing it all over the place. But that would be a good role for Derek Diamond, in my opinion.
Also for the last series, if we could take it into this one, is maybe be a little more cognizant of that stealing third.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I said with
a lot of time with that stealing thing. He's fast, but I think sometimes at third, we lose a lot of we get a lot of outs there with some of the steals. So maybe a little smarter reads on those.
Yeah, I made the comment on Twitter not too long ago that there's an out at third, that we are possibly the worst base running team in the history of college baseball. I mean, that is the territory we're in at the moment, and we are constantly making first and third outs at third base. It's absolutely ridiculous. All right. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Tomorrow we will continue to cover spring practice along with an extra. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. I did a 45-minute piece on Matt Corral that I submitted to the network today that I think was pretty good. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much, Cara, for joining us. I look forward to next week. And we will talk about the Tennessee series and continue with spring practice.
Thank you. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy. Have a good one.